And with intuitive painting, some things to keep in mind so that as you're going, you do find it visually pleasing is the colors that are arranged on your color palette are in the same arrangement as the rainbow or the color wheel, and the ones next to each other mix and make some beautiful colors. The ones that are opposite each other will make brown. So if you want your color to be bright and vibrant, think about the colors you're putting next to each other as you do your painting. Another fun thing to do with just kind of loose abstract painting is to do different brush strokes. So you can play with really big strokes like I did in the beginning, or maybe hold your brush a little tighter and paint some more detailed lines or shapes. You can also vary the amount of water that you put on your brush. So maybe you do a big stroke with lots of water, and you could just use water on your brush with no paint and run that across and let the paint drip. You can do the wet on wet technique where you drop a color into the wet puddle that you've created and just let it flow. Watch it seep into the other colors. Another technique that I love to do as I paint is just to focus on my breath. Your breathing, your breath connects your body to your mind and allows you to have more control as you are doing anything with hand-eye coordination. So breathing in, I'll go up. And breathing out, I'll come down. And if you would like to continue with me, you might find that your strokes start to find more precision and more focus. I went all the way to the end of the page there without dipping my brush in water and just focused on my breath. It really helps me just relax and enjoy watching the colors flow and kind of continuing that experience. It's also really nice to just see what happens with the watercolor and let go of complete control. So if you wet a section of your paper, and then while it's still wet, pick some colors to just drop little dots in. The paint will flow in different directions, and that's pretty fun to watch as well. And as I'm painting and this process intuitively, kind of just trusting myself, going with the flow, I just work around the page, fill the page, and then go back and start playing with more colors and different things. So as I work my way down the page, maybe I can start adding less water, and maybe I'm starting to feel a little more focused, focusing on my breath. Maybe some squiggly lines or some shapes. Just kind of having fun with whatever is presenting itself on the page. Going slow with intuitive painting is very rewarding because as you take your time, you start to think of and be more creative with where you put your brush strokes and what shapes you create. When you work quickly to try to get to some end result, usually the painting gets pretty messy pretty quickly, and then you find yourself maybe not liking it because all the colors blended and everything was very wet. So this is a good practice for just being in the moment and paying attention to what you're doing and not worrying so much about getting to the end of the project. And if you're not loving it, taking your time, stepping back from it, and just connecting with your breath is really helpful. Sometimes as I paint abstractly, I might see something in my painting and say, oh, that looks like a rainbow or a flower, and I might try to paint it. But in this case, I really want to force myself to not have a vision in my head, to just go with the flow without trying to make something look like anything else. Because this is sort of my warm-up painting, and I can do other paintings where I'm not just trying to relax and be in the moment. I tend to work with these bright colors first because I find that they stand out more, and then I can do darker colors later. If you've started to use some dark colors and you're finding that it's getting really dark, you can blot it out with your paper towel and see what that does, or add some brighter colors in smaller areas. But I'm gonna transition now and do some darker colors. So green right next to yellow tells me that those two colors blend nicely together. They're next to each other on the rainbow and the color wheel. And I'm going to play with that wet on wet technique again. So I'm going to add a lot of water and just let that green flow, because I'm not really sure, to be honest, like, where I'm going with this or what it's going to look like. But I do just want to fill the page so that I don't have a lot of white staring back at me. So I feel like I've made this painting somewhat finished, but again, there's no real finish line. I'm just playing, and I want to keep playing. And something else that I find really fun to do is when I have one color that's wet, to drop another color that matches really nicely with it in. So I'm going to add some blue in the corner over here. And if you've taped down your paper, the beauty of the tape is it will create a nice border for you, and it will also keep the paint from going all over your paper. So we have some salt and we haven't used it yet. If you've never done this before, it's really fun. If you take a little bit of salt and you pour it in a puddle of paint, so while it's still wet, just kind of put some drops on it. And what that salt will do is it will soak up the paint, and when it dries, you'll see a little textured spotted effect, and that's really fun, just visually to look at those differences. So once you've kind of filled your whole page, think about going back into the white spaces with a smaller brush. So acrylic brushes are great for details with watercolor because they hold less paint and they're a little more pointy. So I'm going to go back in with some darker colors now. And your watercolor palette, what's great about the design is you can use this side to mix some colors. So I want a purpley blue now. I want to add some darker colors. So I'm going to mix some purple and some blue over here. Add some water to that. And kind of keeping my focus and cutting out distractions will help me paint inside those little areas. Maybe you want to do lines or think of some shapes. Abstract artists make their work by just thinking about different shapes. Maybe you do swirls. Just play with the movement of your brush. And painting Sometimes we don't think about the fact that we're using our body. And when we're tight, when we're stressed, it shows in your painting. It will look tight. It will look controlled. It will make you or whoever looking at it feel that feeling. So if you want to feel relaxed and you want to feel happy, then sometimes you just have to let it go. So as the teacher here, I'm saying that I'm looking at these circles and I don't love it because I just quickly did it and feel like it looks messy, but I'm going to keep going with it because I'm trusting the process, and I know that in the end this is better for me than worrying about what it looks like or being a perfectionist. So I'm trusting my gut, trusting my intuition, giving myself that space to just try something new, and maybe it won't work out and I won't really like how it looks in the end, but I'll have tried and I'll have learned something new from it. And that's kind of our goal here today. Not really making a finished painting or worrying about what it looks like, if it's visually pleasing, but more just about being creative, taking some chances, taking some risks, playing with the paint. So can you invent some new brush strokes, some new techniques? At this point, sometimes you have so much on your paper that you're not really sure where to go, and you just start sort of like scribbling, and that's okay too, as long as you're not ripping holes into your paper because you're pressing so hard. You know, stay gentle, stay loose, and start maybe going over some of those areas that are translucent and see what that looks like. You could build up your colors even darker if you stayed kind of light like me. See what happens when you add purple or blue or black to an area and build it up. You could swirl your brush around. You may find that it makes a nice circle for you as you start to focus more. I'm going to make another little puddle area because I love the salt effect. I know that that looks nice on darker colors, and I just like painting it. It's fun. I'm going to darken these circle blobs and put some salt in them. When I get towards the end of a painting and everything is full, I like to add tiny little details. Grab that salt again and put a little bit more. The beauty of watercolor paint is that it is transparent, so if you have some lighter layers and you paint over it, it's fun to see those colors peek out. I'm painting over some of the yellow here with this red and purple, and it's popping out. It's like the sun peeking out of the clouds. Sometimes when I do paintings like this, I like to just do 1 or 2 colors and leave it at that. And sometimes I like to do the whole rainbow. Mixing your own colors too can create some really nice effects. Instead of just using the rainbow colors that are on the palette, mixing your own is fun as well. Okay, so I'm feeling like I have a lot on my page right now. Sometimes it's fun to revisit it and come back to it later. I'm going to take a break for today, and I hope that you've enjoyed, and I will see you again soon.